Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 13 of our Exploring the CVerse series here in TEW 2020. We are on to CZCW, Coastal Zone Championship Wrestling. And as always, I appreciate you guys supporting the channel and having fun with this Exploring the CVerse series. It's kind of been the holdover series, I guess you will, as we try to dive back into our Big Three series of WWE, AEW, and WCW 1998. So we'll have a lot more of that on the way. I promise it's coming. I'm getting more organized now that my work is not as busy, and so yes, I'm starting to record a lot of these episodes kind of together. You won't necessarily see them published on the channel together, but I am recording a lot of episodes kind of at once. That way, I can spread these out a little bit. In the instance that my work does get a little more busy, and yes, that's just the way to do it. I think the smarter way, rather than just going weeks without publishing anything on the channel. So you guys know how it works by now, but I do appreciate your support as always. But let's talk about CZCW and jumping into what is the 12th ranked company in the world. I've actually played with CZCW quite a bit over the years, it seems like, because obviously when we get into kind of where they are, I mean, they've just hung around, like they've always been there. And I think that's kind of the fun part of looking at this company, is that they're just always there. Companies have come and gone throughout TEW, but CZW has been there a while now. And so again, 12th in the world, $120,000 to work with, 62% momentum. And if we look at the size as of now, obviously small. 35 popularity, we've achieved that. To hit that small range, to get to medium, that's the next step. We've got to get to 59 in the Southwest, so we're at 40 now, so certainly manageable. As you start to grow the company, that's absolutely achievable. And then a 35 in the Mid-South or Northwest, which are 24 in Mid-South, 28 in Northwest. So again, a pretty achievable road to medium. And I think one of the things that CZCW has going for it is that there's a lot of talent to work with, not necessarily on the roster, but given the relationships. And so I think that's going to be really important here, because to me, if you want to kind of sum up what this company is, to me, like, it's all about relationships, because they have, all the different relationships, and we'll look at this in a minute when we get to the roster, but that is one of the big values of playing with a company that is small in size and can certainly have workers stolen away. But CZCW is the ultimate. Everyone loves them in that they can pretty much work with anybody, trade talent with anyone, and so that's kind of a luxury to have. But let's talk about the product, because it is pretty self-explanatory here. When you look at it, titled Explosive Action, Fast and Furious, no, not the movie franchise, but somewhat similar in that it really is fast-paced. And, you've got smaller workers, so the roster mostly made up of, lightweights, but match quality is king. And that is where, you're going to look at this and you're going to see the variety of different kind of matches you can have, whether it's, strikers being able to do their thing. You have some high flyers on the roster, technical type, wrestling masterpieces. That's what it's all about. It's not about the gimmicks. It's not about the characters. In fact, this company has no storylines because you're not required to have any. So there's no face heel divide. So that's kind of the product, and of course that's different than a lot of the ones you see out there. Now, one of the more interesting aspects of this is that women's wrestling, as you see here, the starting point. Now, of course, you can always change this, but this is just kind of the setup for CZCW. Integrated, meaning it's not a women's division. It means that women's wrestling, women's stars are essentially treated equally as the other stars on the roster. So, you can have the integrated matches, and that's kind of something that, again, is different about CZCW. And so that gives you perhaps a little more variety in terms of booking and different stories you want to put together. Again, it's one of the unique selling points, I guess you could say, of CZCW. So that is something that you can look at if you're looking for something different with the product and those kind of things. Everything over here, obviously with this kind of style, you're going to have more injuries. It's more intense because it is something that's very fast paced and it's go, 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 go. High impact moves, those kind of things. So that's just how it works. If you're going to do angles, they got to be short. As you'll see down here, angles need to be short or they lose the crowd because it is about the matches and sort of those, the pace, right? It's all about pace. So this is one that definitely plays into that. Got to have steal the show as one of your match aims on every single show. I know that's here somewhere. I saw it when I was putting my notes together for this, but yes, there it is. So you have to have at least one match for steal the show, which makes sense because, again, that's what this is really all about. And as I said earlier, there are no storylines needed. And, again, not that you can't run angles, but it is really going to be very much based on the in-ring work here. So the work rate promotion is how I like to look at CZCW. That's exactly what it is on that. So, all right, let's look at the events, normal event schedule. What I like about CZCW, you guys know where I'm going to go with this. They have graphics. I like the ones that just kind of have them built in that I don't necessarily have to search for or, find somewhere else. So I do like the fact, and these are pretty cool. Like, this is going to be the same with the titles. Like, for me, this just adds an extra element, right? It just adds something different, adds something a little interesting that you don't always get, and it gives you a visual way to kind of, for me, that always helps, kind of just to plan out different things. Like if I'm looking at this battle on the beach, those kind of things, I can somehow plot out, two guys doing a Canadian destroyer into a pool or something. I'm just kidding. That's probably not going to happen, but at least the option's on the table there with that. But, so you've got a bunch of really cool looking graphics, and so obviously there's some that you can certainly play into. Christmas Cage Chaos, so you go all out with a full-on cage match as your main event there. But, yeah, there's just a lot of fun ones. I like this one, the Vendetta one. So, yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff here. Obviously, you don't have a TV show right now. That's down the road potentially, but that's kind of what the roster looks like. And as I mentioned, the titles, I love this Coastal Zone Championship Wrestling title here. I just think this is a thing of beauty to me. So, it's in the eye of the beholder, but I really like it. I mean, this is kind of a fun thing to look at. And so, your Coastal Zone champion right now, Frankie Perez. So he's someone that, obviously has the belt, and this is kind of the top title there in the promotion. Tag team, we'll get to the tag teams in a second, but also like this tag team belt. So you got your tag team belt, you got your Extreme Championship. So, those are all things. The Extreme one you can kind of use more so to do gimmick matches, and not gimmick necessarily in the way that you would think, but really, making it as it says here. You're going to have a clean finish in those kind of matches, but Extreme type of settings, so you can have fun with that. So 3 titles there for looking at there. By the way, we didn't do this. Looking at the bio real quick, because that's always important. Like I said earlier, I mean, it's, a company that's just been around. And as you see, it's been in business for nearly 3 decades. So they've always been there. And as I said, relationships are everything. Always open to working with others. And you see all the different ones. And we'll look at in a second the actual relationships they have. And as I talked about as well, progressive company. Female workers compete as equals with the men. So that is, again, unique part of Coastal Zone here, and that's something you could play around with if you want to go that route, because you don't get that opportunity in many other promotions. I don't know if any other promotions are like that, because I haven't gone through all of them just yet, but I would say this is one of a few at most. So, all right, 2, looking at some other things here. As I said, there's no storylines, so you don't have to worry about that, because you're not required to run any. Of course, you can always change that if you want. There are no stables, no storylines. You do have something here, and what I think is one of the biggest advantages of the roster, the tag team division, because you've got a lot of experienced tag teams. If we go down the list here, as you'll see, 58 for this one. Now, obviously, that one's not. 61, 80, 84. We go down here, 100, 100. So you've got some good tag teams. Now, I guess the big thing is to make sure all these people are actually active workers. But, so you've got tag teams to choose from. I think that's fun to look at as a possibility if you want to go that route. Building up the tag team division, and as it noted in the title section, sometimes the tag team division has been equal to kind of the main title. So that's something you could do if you want to do it that way. Looking at some other stuff, let's see, what else have we not looked at? Go to the creative section here. This is where you start to look at, kind of what stands out. And I think one of the things that stands out at the top, and we said this is a promotion that's got, the product itself, you're going to have some people get injured, and you're going to have some people that maybe wear down a little quicker. Your top 3 franchise players here are all about 35 or older. But still, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to look at, even though you do have some aging stars here, and you never know with the injuries, as we said, but that's a matter of just playing the game and figuring it out. But you got some next big things to choose from, 3 here. You've got, your usual list of hot prospects, which is worth noting for these are women stars. So, as we said, that's part of the appeal, perhaps, of playing with this company. Honestly, all the other stuff, the showstoppers, ring generals, again, this is what this promotion's about. So being able to work in the ring is very important. So, the actual talking and that aspect is not really that important because it's really mostly about the matches. And so, that's not necessarily, if you're going out and trying to build the roster and you want to go out and figure out what talent you want, in all honesty, you're looking for in-ring skill based on kind of the current setup as it stands. All right, to the actual roster itself. I think, as I said, usually, you guys know how I do this. I usually go by star quality, but in all honesty, it's really not that important when you're looking at this company the way it's currently set, which you don't have a lot of people here. And, some people like Fox Mask, he's 39, but retired in 2019. And so, again, he was a big part of kind of Coastal Zone forever. I can remember playing as this company and having Fox Mask as the champion. And, that was probably, I don't know, years ago. But I can remember kind of that setup. It may have been either 13 or 16. But yeah, again, so you've got, and that's what it talks about kind of with Frankie Perez, losing some of the top stars, Fox Mask, Donnie J, Super Ninja, and Perez has kind of moved into that upper echelon now, and has the stats to be able to do it. But so star quality is not really, as I said, that important. But you do have some guys that have, some of that star quality. But again, this is where the importance lies, is in the in-ring skill. Knowing the match quality is kind of everything when you look at it. Worth noting here as well with Pablo Rodriguez, of course, he's an interesting one because, as you can read with the bio, someone that was in south of the border, which we know no longer exists in its current iteration, but basically stripped of the book, has the booker, and then just stunned everyone just showing up in Coastal Zone. So now he's here, and he's also the Confederation of the Territories World Heavyweight Champion. So we'll talk about that in a second, but he's clearly at 44. I feel like you're always kind of on the verge of him possibly retiring. So that's worth remembering at the start. But you can definitely use Pablo right off the bat to be able to grow quickly because he does have the popularity. You could always go, hey, I want to grow as well into Mexico. Look at this. He's kind of the guy you're leaning on. It's just a matter of when is he going to retire, perhaps. But he's definitely at the top of where everything is at. And so again, even though I kind of filtered this by star quality, it's pretty clear when you look at kind of who the top draws are, because you even compare him to Frankie Perez, and Pablo's way ahead of sort of everyone at this point when you look at it. So definitely, I would say from the start, if you're just looking to try to get those ratings up, Pablo is someone to lean on immediately because he's got all of this. And like I said, too, of course, it's also, can you keep him away from any potential competition out there that would like to sign Pablo? Because I think that's always a possibility when you have a guy that, has the popularity he has and all that. So that could be a big challenge. So that's why I would lean on him right away because you don't really know when he could either retire or be stolen away by a bigger company. So, but that's a quicker way perhaps to get to that point of kind of rebuilding things up. All right, we talked about kind of the female aspect of this, and I think I filtered it right by everyone. Yeah. So this is kind of your starting female roster. Now, I think I'm looking at this. There's one. I think there are 2 that are managers, but again, so this is kind of one of those things you can look at and then start to look at the skills and just sort of see what's available there. And most of these are young, right? 20 years old. Brittany Hollywood here is 37, and she's got the sort of the highest appeal, I guess you could say, from a star quality standpoint, but she's not a wrestler. So that's worth noting. And again, another 20-year-old. So and I think she was actually listed on one of the next big things, Ellie here. And so you look at all those things, and you can see the sort of the in-ring potential with those colors there. And so you keep going. You see a lot of young stars in the women's division. Or like I said, it's not a women's division, but like on the women's roster, which again is equal to the men's roster based on how Coastal Zone is set up. 20 years old here. Like, look at all the stats. Like, these can be, again, this is another one that if you want to go this route, there are plenty of possibilities to work with. If you're just looking at it from how do you sort of integrate the women into kind of your booking process, knowing that everyone's together, kind of on the same roster here. So that's something worth noting. And then, of course, the men's roster, you've got some good talent there, and you can go through and kind of look at all those. But as I said, the in-ring stuff, looking up here, looking down here, some of the other stuff, yeah, it's very important as we look at some of this stuff, especially, these kind of areas too. When we talk about the high-flying, sort of lightweight workers, having the aerial skill, different one, technical stuff, as we talked about, like striking, those kind of things, those are all important aspects of kind of what the product expects. And as I always say, you can certainly change that. But I really like this roster. I mean, I think when you just look at it and given the options you have to work with, we talked about the tag team division and kind of going up and down and looking at different people. Like I said, it's basically, if you want to book this as it stands from the start, it's sort of booking, how can I book the best matches and get the best ratings, which of course is always the achievement, but or always the goal. But I mean, I think that there's plenty to start with here, and that's where when you get into this, and like of course you can always dive into the roster and the bios a bit more, but this is where being sort of the one of the initial members or of the Confederation of the Territories. That's where you have these different companies, IPW, MAW, NYCW, and Ollie as well, to be able to trade talent with, to be able to go back and forth there. But it's also worth noting that you have relationships outside of that as well, because you have CILL here and you have EMLL that are, relationships outside of Confederation of the Territories. So you can also trade talent with them as well. So you've got a lot of options to choose from, keeping the roster in terms of just managing it, even if workers get stolen away, those kind of things. You have so many different options to lean on because you have so many relationships that are good relationships. And so that's what I think keeps Coastal Zone going. And that's what, as we said, has kept them going for 3 decades now. And it'll continue to keep them going just based on the relationships. Or, you know what? You can go the narrative route and say, I'm just going to tear this all down. Coastal Zone is going to become the biggest company in the world. I'm going to start just, breaking off all my relationships, and I'm going to put an influx of money here, and we're just going to, be the next whatever. So that's always an option too, if you want to go that route. But there you go. There's some thoughts on Coastal Zone Championship Wrestling. I think one of the fun, sort of smaller promotions in size that you have out there because of the flexibility. You could really keep your booking pretty fresh, given all the talent trade possibilities with the, as we said, Confederation of the Territories plus the relationships in Mexico. So you can keep your roster fresh. You can keep your booking fresh from event to event. And, again, making that jump up to try to get to medium. Then, of course, you start to get into TV possibilities and all that. So definitely a fun challenge, I think, with Coastal Zone. And if you like this kind of product, as I said too, it's really all about the matches. You don't have to worry about booking storylines. You don't have to worry about gimmicks, characters, all this other stuff. You're just booking great matches, and that can be one of the easier starting points, I think, in TEW, is just to go right in, try to book matches. You learn what does well match-wise, what gets better ratings, mixing talent together. So I think this is kind of a fun promotion to get going with, if you want something that's pretty fast-paced, because it does kind of blend right into the product. You can book this company pretty fast. You can move from month to month pretty quickly, just based on kind of what your objectives are to start. So there you go. There's some thoughts on CZCW. So as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys, the great support, the feedback on all these videos. And as I said, I'm starting to get a little bit more organized now, and I'm recording actually multiple of these Exploring the CVerse series videos right now. So as I finish this one, I'm going to go straight to the next one and keep these have a little more backlog for you guys, so I can spread them out when things get busy and such. And so I'm going to do the same with WWE, AEW, WCW. I'm going to try to record those episodes kind of all back to back with each other. That way I have a little bit of a backlog built up, and I can get these episodes out a little more consistently for you guys. So I appreciate your support as always. And on the next episode of the Exploring the CVerse series, we are going to head to Japan as we go to PGHW.